Hey guys, Pete with Mixcat Reboot IT. I got a classic case here that we see a lot that comes into the shop. This is a HP DV9000. These guys actually run really hot, and over time the screens go out on. Well, it's not actually the screen, but it's the video that overheats, and you won't see the screen come on. You get all the lights on here. I'll show you. All the blue lights, but nothing on the screen. And this is very common for this DV series. All the way from the DV2000 to the 9000, you'll see this sort of issue. What we actually have to do on this is pull it all apart, because it is a motherboard issue. Pull the board out, and we're going to actually re-solder down the video chipset on this particular model. There is a class action lawsuit against HP, and I'm going to put up the information on the sidebar so you guys, if you do have a DV series, and there's also a couple Compaqs, I believe the F500 and 700, also a class action lawsuit. So if you do have one of these models and spent good money on them, you are entitled to some money back. And again, I'll put the info on there for you. But I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this and show you what we do to fix it. Alright, everything again has to be taken apart. This is a good 2.5-hour project, even for somebody that knows what they're doing. You got to pull the battery out, you got to pull out the hard drives, the memory door, and you see on the bottom here, this is actually the screws for the switch plate, which is on this side. So after you get the screws off, the switch plate pops up, and then you can get at the keyboard, and it's pretty easy from there on out. Okay, CD-ROM comes out, just a little screw for that, and I did the screws that were on the bottom that I showed you for the switch plate. And there's two ribbons that go up under here, so be very careful when pulling this up. You want to apply a little bit of force, but not too much. There we are. And just be very careful on that left side, because again, it's got those little ribbon cables. There we are. Alright, this particular one had the one in the center, but this little connector, pop that off, and now there's a couple screws for the keyboard, and the keyboard will pop right up. Okay, when pulling the keyboard connector, you just want to be very careful, and there's two little clips on the side, and that actually holds down the ribbon. Just kind of push that up a little bit. There we are. And on this side too. Gotta do it by hand. That's it. And you get a bunch of little ribbon connectors just like that. These on the left, they just pull out, but be gentle with these guys because they really don't hold up very well, and you don't want to have to replace those. Now, if you have a webcam, you're going to have one of these cables that come off from the right. The other cable that's here, you're going to have actually two of these. These are the pigtails for the wireless card. On the left-hand side, you're going to have your video. This is for the LCD. That's going to come up. And you got two more little connector cables here that have to come up. There's two screws here and another screw on this side. That's for the LCD monitor, and that's going to come off too. Alright, we got a little bit of a change of scenery. My technician needed my station over there, so we're in the back. I pulled all the screws out of the LCD, and I disconnected everything. That's just going to come off. We're going to put him aside. And now the next thing we're going to need to do is take out the screws that are located here on the palm rest, and all the screws on the back, and the plastics are going to come apart. Okay, I pulled out all the screws top and bottom. You're talking about 15 minutes worth of pulling screws out. What you definitely want to make a note of is after you get the hard drives out, you definitely want to pull out that wireless card. It's got a long screw in there that actually goes to the palm rest, and you won't be able to pull the plastic up if you don't take out that wireless. This kind of, you've got to be a little forceful, but this snaps around the side that has to come out. And again, be careful with these cables. They have double stick tape that goes down to the aluminum pad. There we go. Now we're going to have to unscrew all the screws that hold this motherboard down, and on the side here there's little flathead screws that go into this expansion port. There we go, the expansion port. Hopefully you can see that pretty good. And these got to come out. This is an extension for the CD. And this is where that remote goes in. This has to come out as well. Then you'll be able to get to the motherboard and the CPU. Okay, on the right hand side here, I pulled out those 2 screws in this metal plate and a screw here. Also, there's a cable. This cable is going to have to come out the side like that. Then this comes out like so. And we're going to do the same thing with this extension, and it'll give us better access to the board. Okay, we pull out the screw here, and he pops out. Got to remember to put that back in, otherwise your CD-ROM's not going to mount. Okay, here's the wireless switch. We're going to take this ribbon out. That comes out. And right over here for the plugs in the front, it actually has a connector that goes into the board. I put a little screwdriver behind it, and I pull, and it pops right up like that. A couple more screws, and we're going to pop up the board, as well as those flatheads on the side. A lot goes into fixing the video chipset. If it's something that you're not comfortable with, we do these all day long. You're more than welcome to mail it down to us, and we do have a flat rate package for all my YouTubers. Okay, in the back there's one screw for this plastic piece, and when you get it up, you just kind of push it back like that, and be careful over here by the hinge, because you could damage that pretty easily. It's thin plastic. Just get behind it and kind of pull up. Yeah, it's real tight. There it goes. Sounds like it's going to break, but you got to put just enough force to get it up without breaking it, because it's these little clips that are in the back. Alright, and now we're going to pull out, there's a couple more screws for this heat sink, and I'll be able to pull that board up. The speakers do have to come up also. There's a couple little silver screws holding these guys in place. Tip them up and take out that connector, and there go the speakers. Alright, we're pretty close now. Just kind of tip this up, rock it back and forth, and there's a couple wires that are in the bottom that have to be disconnected here. This is the power for the power jack. Just kind of rock them, and there's our other little guy. Alright, he's up. And I think got a couple little screws in there to go. Aha! Got the board out. Okay, here's kind of the silly thing that HP did on this particular model. Video chipset is right here, and the CPU's here. This is a pretty big laptop. It would have been very easy for them to make a separate heatsink that had fans on both. But what they opted to do is a single heatsink that covers both of them. And this is really the key issue for this guy overheating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off, I'm going to re-sit down the video chipset, and I'm going to make up a copper shim that's going to drop this about 10 degrees lower. I cut them perfectly to size, and we put some thermal grease on there, better than the factory stuff. Just undoing the CPU here. And it's actually numbered, so you could follow the number scheme, but it doesn't really make a big difference. Alright, this comes off, that's for the fan. And he just pops up. This one's pretty clean. When they really start to get bad, if you look at this video chipset, you'll actually start to see bubbles around that chip. And if you do see bubbles, it's a goner. You're going to have to pull this chip off and actually put a new one on there, and it's a lot of work to do it. Yeah, but everything looks clean, and you could tell. There's no thermal compound on this. There should be. So that's definitely a reason why it was overheating. Just they did a horrible job on the layout of this. You're talking little heat sink that lays across these two to dissipate the heat. Look at that heat sink. It's just a little piece of copper. This should be thick copper. And I personally would opt for 2 fans. But yeah, that's what they did, and that's why they have these problems, and hence the class action lawsuit. Okay, when we go to work on this, we definitely want to pull out that CMOS power. That way there's no juice going to the board at all. That's, hopefully you can see, yeah, this is the video chipset. And what I'm going to do is build up some aluminum sheeting around that, because I'm going to heat this up with a torch. We want to make sure we don't affect anything that's on the side of that. Also, definitely put it on top of something that's going to dissipate the heat, and I have an aluminum shield in here for that. What I'm using is a very thick aluminum, where it's just thick enough where it'll dissipate the heat. It's thicker than a heavy-duty tin foil. It's just a little bit thicker than a soda can, thinner rather than a soda can. And I actually did take a soda can and cut a square. That's going to sit on top too to further dissipate that heat. But we want to protect the board, that way nothing else gets the brunt of that torch heat. There's a good shot of the double aluminum protection that we made up. It's perfectly snug around that chip, and it's got the further insulation of this can that's on the top. We got the square cut out of it. What I'm using is a pen torch, and I just go in a circle motion, what you want to get it up to is about 210 degrees. Oh, that's what happens when you talk and use the pen. All right. It's about right. And we're going to let that cool naturally. Let it sit for about 10-15 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and clean it up, put a little alcohol on the top, make sure it's nice and clean. This one's real clean. Usually they're kind of dirty with the compound. And put the heat sink, and I'll hook up the screen and see if it posts. Alright, now we're going to put a little bit of thermal compound on the chip and the CPU. Both of these guys are going to have a custom copper shim that we make up. And it's a nice thick piece of copper. And this goes just like that, right over the chip. Alright. And that's what's going to drop it up to 10 degrees. This really takes care of that heating issue that you have with the overheat issue with the video. Here's a shot of the fan assembly back together with the copper shim in place and this copper onto the CPU as well. I'm going to flip it over and hook it up to the LCD screen with the battery and hopefully see video. Okay, without putting it all back together, I like to test these things just to make sure that that CPU and video chipset fix worked. I'm hooking up the video for the monitor so you guys can see here, and that's the power on button, and I have a charged battery here. This is the easiest way to test it without putting the whole thing back together. Alright, we got blue lights, that's a good sign. Come on. There we go, video. We got a fix. While I have this apart, I'm actually going to pull the fan out. There's a couple screws, 4 screws, to pull this apart, just to make sure we have it running perfectly. There's a little double stick tape. Oh, there you go. Look at all the dirt in there. So that's probably why this guy overheated originally, besides the design flaw. So what we're going to do is just take out all this stuff, and you can blow it out with air, or you can use a vacuum on that. I take a wire brush and I just kind of brush that out, but you want to make that nice and clean and put the fan back on. Okay, now you can see that that's all nice and clean in there. I pulled a nice big chunk of dirt out of there. Now for the fun part, we're going to put it all back together. So do exactly what I did, taking it apart, just the other way around. And I don't want to see any extra screws laying around. I'll be back with you guys in a couple minutes. Alright, it's starting to look like something again. Alright. It's just a lot of screws that go into this. It's relatively hard. If you've done a DC jack before, then you might want to attempt this. If you haven't done a DC jack and you're not good with a torch, you're not going to want to heat up that chip. If you go a little too hot, you will crack that chip, and it's pretty easy to do. What you didn't see in the background, we were actually running a thermal scanner. That way we could see the exact temperature of the chip. You want to get it to about 210, and that's about the flow point of the solder. There we go. Alright, And now we're going to put on the LCD. Yeah, I do it the old-fashioned way with the screwdriver. I like to feel the tension on each of the screws. That way it don't get stripped out by a driver. The electric ones tend to over-torque. So yeah, I do it the old-fashioned way. There we go. Okay, here go the speakers. And forget those. There we go. That's when it's handy to have real small fingers. Which I have not been blessed with. That's fine. We make do. And just remember to retrace all these wires just how they were. Again, these were the wireless pigtails. That's going to go across here like that and through the board. Keyboard. CD-ROM should click into place, and it gets a screw from the bottom side here. Hold that CD in place. Okay, there's our hard drive, network card. We got to put in the wireless card. Excuse me. Pick this up. That goes in there with the long screws. We're almost there. Okay, before I put all the screws in the bottom, we're going to test out a couple things just to make sure we're still in good shape. You're going to want to see, plug in your charger, you want to see that purple ring show up. Okay, so we know we're getting juice there and it's hitting the board. And now we're going to test out the video to make sure everything's seated okay and we're in good shape. There's the HP screen. I tested out the internet on the wireless. That connected up fine. As you can see, everything looks good. Only thing left to do is put in the last couple screws and call the customer. Thanks, guys.